And a good morning, Birds fans. It's a non-football Friday. The question is, will it be a fatality Friday? We'll find out at some point in the future. I don't even know if we'll find out today or tomorrow. There are many variables as to where this Philadelphia Eagles offseason is going, and that's why I'm partnered with John McMullen, because he gets to the heart of it and gets us some good insight. Johnny Mac, when we left yesterday, I asked what your day was going to be like on Thursday, and you said texting my life away, looking for a sunny day and some inside information.
San Martin. Yeah, we're talking about that. Yeah, looking for a sunny day, but couldn't get one because the owner's busy yacht shopping. So we'll get the business when it's time to get the business.
It is a good life that Jeff Lurie is having, except for Monday night down in Tampa. That wasn't too good, but he's trying to rebound by buying a yacht. Good on him. And here in the Delaware Valley, the snow's coming down. I went with the heavy shirt today, just because I know it's snowing significantly outside, and it's going to get worse as the day goes on. So that, and I wore the shirt last night, so I said I'm throwing it back on again. I know people want a result. They want someone to pay. They want to see a little carnage after the collapse that was the 2023 season for the Philadelphia Eagles. As a guy who does this for a living and also a fan, I'd like some answers too, but maybe I'm just a little bit more patient in life and don't need my answers immediately every single day, every single time. You got any problems with the Eagles taking the measured approach here? We can poke fun at Jeff Lurie all we want about yacht shopping, but there are other teams that are making other calls and trying to sell other coaches, be they head or coordinator or any other position. The National Football League continues to spin, and the Eagles have taken a step back and said, let's take a deep breath before we get into the most important meetings and the decisions thereafter. Eagles a little slow to react here, in your opinion, Johnny Mac?
No, because I think their reaction at this stage is pretty obvious, and that's that Nick Sirianni's going to be back, most likely. I won't put it at 100% because there's an avenue, but I've always said the avenue lies with Nick Sirianni's willingness to accept the instructions put in front of him. If he accepts them, he'll be back, and I'm at 100% with that. But he might not, and that's where the opening comes in. So from the Eagles' perspective, it's business as usual. They're doing things behind the scenes. Jeffrey's yacht shopping, but as you saw the report from Diana Rossini, Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni are contacting potential coaches, be they coordinators or assistants. So they're still doing work, and that is another indication that they're going in a certain direction. And again, they can sit down today and who knows, it's snowing. So, everything's canceled, right? It's not like when we were young, Jody. Yeah, this wouldn't get school canceled, but they canceled school last night. So Jeffrey might put it off even further. We'll see what shakes out today. But I think it's pretty clear the plan, and we'll see how the plan unfolds. So from that standpoint, I don't have a problem with it. And if you go back to Chip Kelly, right, when he wants to fire somebody, for those who forget, he fired Chip Kelly. Chip didn't coach the last game of the season. He was out. Pat Shurmur coached the last game of the season. So, he can make a quick decision when he wants to make a quick decision. But then you go to Doug Pederson again. The plan was, and that's why we leave the door open for Nick Sirianni. The plan was to move forward with Doug Pederson. And then Doug laid out his plan to move forward. Jeffrey didn't like it, said, no, you got to go in a different direction. Doug, who basically got a little bit tired of being pushed around, said, you know what? I'm done. Pay me the final year of my deal. I'll go take a vacation, much like the owner. And he did, and he came back the year later. So that is where we are. And that's, I think, pretty clear from this standpoint. But if he wanted to fire him, he could have fired him the next day, could have fired him 2 hours after the game. He could have done it immediately, but he didn't want to do it immediately. So that tells you a lot.
Sure does. And, oh, by the way, Pat Shurmur want to know, Best winning percentage
Yes,
ever.
Eagles
Coach in
history.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, correct.
I'm still kind of surprised.
Will
They won
never
that
be
game.
broken, by the way. Will never be
Can
broken.
only be tied, correct.
Yeah.
And there is no interim coach here because Nick Sirianni made it to the end, got his head handed to him in Tampa Bay. I'm with you across the board and everything you just said. You and I see it exactly the same. So here's my question to you. You probably would have said we weren't doing Birds 365 at the time. I wish we were. That Doug Pederson would have said, been able to read the room and go, do I really want to stay as a coach of this team? Do I want to get fired? Do I want to take another shot with my guys again the year? Because you continually tell me, Jody, there's a reason they went 4-11-1 that year. They weren't good, but they weren't as bad as their record indicated because they had all those injuries on the offensive line. And they weren't the same team that had gone to the playoffs consecutive years prior to and even won the Super Bowl. Doug had to know that too. And he had to have faith that, hey, if I get the chance, I'm going to be able to put this back together again. He chose not to. And I think Doug's also bright enough to know if you draw a line in the sand, the owner's going to erase the line and you, my friend. And apparently Doug reached the conclusion that, yeah, I want to move on. Go ahead, fire me, like you just said. I don't know that I would have believed that prior to. If we were doing Birds 365, then you and I both would have been on the record. I was on WIP at the time, and I think, memory serves, I thought that Pederson, when he wasn't fired the day after the season ended, had saved his job. And then they had the all-important meeting, and Doug decided to throw a smoke bomb into the room, and boom, he was done. Do you think that Nick Sirianni can do the same today?
I think he could, but the difference between Doug and Nick is Doug was farther along getting pushed around. He had wanted to keep Mike Rowe the year prior. And you remember the whole, we're there in the press conference. We asked him the question, is Mike Rowe going to be back? He said yes.
Yep.
And then 2 days later, he had to turn around and fire him because he didn't want to fire him. He was ordered to fire him. So he was further along the process of being a little bit upset about how they were dipping into his coaching staff. And then it came the next season. And from the standpoint, Press Taylor's an interesting guy because Doug didn't hire Press Taylor, but he grew to like him. And Press is interesting to me because behind the scenes, the Eagles will tell me, what a smart guy. This guy's going to be a future star in the coaching industry. And all of a sudden, he became the scapegoat and he was a dummy. So overnight, very similar to Nick Sirianni.
That's an actual scapegoat. You and I debated the definition of scapegoat yesterday. Oh, yeah, I would absolutely point to Press Taylor and his Philadelphia Eagle tenure and go, oh, that guy got scapegoated.
Yeah. And, same in a larger sense, because not a lot of people knew Press because, he was never officially the offensive coordinator. You remember the last year they had that weird convoluted setup where they didn't have an offensive coordinator. They had Press Taylor and Rick.
Three semi-offensive coordinators.
Yeah, Marty was here. It was absurd. And Doug kind of said that. Look at your nonsense, basically. I've talked to people close to Doug since then. That was their, creation. Doug didn't want to do that, and it didn't work. So from that standpoint, then he goes in with the clear pen. Look, and Jim Schwartz, the smartest guy of them all, was like, I'm going to retire for 20 minutes and get the hell out of here before the, what hits the fan. And that's how long he retired, I think, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and he was back in the league. So Jim was the smartest guy of all. But so he had to replace, or he had to have a plan for both coordinators. And he said, Press is my guy. He grew to like Press a lot. And obviously he's got him in Jacksonville and he's the offensive coordinator. And he wanted to hire Matt Burke, who was a Jim Schwartz guy, Jim Schwartz acolyte who was here, and former defensive coordinator in Miami. Smart guy, Ivy League guy. And if it wasn't Matt Burke, it was going to be Corey Unlin, who was here for many years under Doug as the defensive backs coach, but was actually, again, a Chip Kelly brought him in. And he had left, and he was going to try to bring him back. So and Jeffrey said, no, can't do that. Can't do that. And further along from the grow aspect of it, he was more upset than probably Nick will be today when he said, and by the way, I think Nick understands there's got to be a lot of changes on that defensive coaching staff, especially. I think he understands that going in. So it was a little bit different from that perspective with Doug and Nick, and all because of Mike Rowe and to a certain extent, Press Taylor.
I think you've laid it out quite well, and there are significant differences between Pederson's situation and Sirianni's situation. Here's the one reason that I think Doug may blow up Nick may blow up himself. I'm a Sirianni fan. I've never gotten to the point where I said leaning up, adding that percentage. It was less than 5% before the Seattle game. Then it went to 10%. Then it went to 20%. And the Giants and now I got the 51-49 stay. I never even got to 50-50. I've been he should stay guy all along. Readily admitting, if he gets fired, I'm not going, oh my God, what were the Eagles thinking? No, they could really fire him, but it was damn close to 50-50. So I've stayed as a Sirianni fan. But one of the things I've always kind of questioned Nick on and stand by today is he can be a stubborn SOB. He can dig his heels in when he wants to. And he doesn't get quite to the level of obstinate, but he's close. He's bumping up against it. He can get his, in an uproar every once in a while. I don't know that would happen today. I would bet against it happening today. As we sit here, can I tell you, I guarantee you it doesn't happen today? No, I can't.
Well, that's where I am. Yeah. I mean, he can. And I said, if they try to push and try to go in a different direction, I always use, and I don't think they're going to do this, but I always use Kevin Patullo as an example. Say, you know what? You guys are too close and you need somebody who's going to not just agree with you, things like that. You know how corporations are. They said you got to bring in differing thoughts and outside voices and things like that. Because they're so close, if they try to go down that route and say something like that, which I don't think they're going to do. I want to emphasize that clearly. I could see Nick saying, you know what? I'm getting another job. You pay me for a year, even if it's not immediate. He's getting another job. Those people are insane who think Nick Sirianni wouldn't be hired by somebody else. So yeah, that's why you have to leave the door open. If they push too far, and really I shouldn't even say it's really Jeffrey more than Howie. If he pushes too far, yeah, anything's on the table. And that's why you can't say 100% he's going to be back.
All right. Let me ask you about a specific course of action that the coach has taken during his time here in Philadelphia, which I just personally have questioned here with you on Bird 365 on my WIP shows. I don't get the whole rubbing salt in the wounds on opponents thing.
Yeah.
Going in the stands and high-fiving fans and screaming in tunnels and stuff like that. Maybe you know the answer to this. If you do, please share it, because I don't. Do you think he was ever attempted to be reeled back in by the organization?
No, never got that indication.
Okay.
Never, because I've asked him that question. And I'm not the only one. I said, he talks about motivation all the time. Use whatever you use. Make stuff up. He said, he always points to Michael Jordan, and Michael did. He would make stuff up. DK Metcalf made stuff up. When he was playing, Jim Schwartz went up to him and said, man, you're a great player. You're the best. You're not there yet, but you're the closest I've ever seen to Calvin Johnson, which is a compliment for anybody who knows anything about professional football. Well, DK was like, what do you mean I'm not as good as somebody else? And he took it as an affront, and he went out and he torched the Eagles. Use it. And I asked Nick that exact question. and I turned his own thoughts on him, and I said, you ever think about other people using that as motivation when you spike the football and make those? Because Kansas City was, when I asked him, and he came in and was hollering about the Kansas City fans, and he mentioned he saw Elliot Shore Parks, your comrade at WIP, who said the Chiefs were going to win the game because they had the better coach and the better quarterback. And he was screaming about him and that. And it's like, come on, dude, what are you doing? I've asked him that question. He says you got to be yourself and all that kind of stuff. And evidently he was a big trash talker. And way back to high school when he was playing basketball, his friends say he would trash talk and everybody loved him and the opposing schools hated him because he just, and that's fine. But when things went bad, people will pile on more quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I was at Joe Torre was the guy who I first heard it from. And he said, if you're nice to people, if you're engaging to people, simple things like you introduce yourself and say, hi, Jody, I'm John. Hi, Ed Kratz in the green room. I'm John. They will give you the benefit of the doubt. Now, if you do badly and you treat people poorly, they're going to turn on you quicker. And if you're a head coach, or in that case, a manager in baseball, that's very important to get a little bit more room. And Nick doesn't seem to process that at this point, but he has acknowledged pretty consistently down the stretch of the season he needs to work on controlling his emotions a little bit more.
Right, and that was kind of leading to my stubbornness point. If he had been told, I guess the only one he really have to listen to is Howie. I don't think Jeffrey would call him in and wag a finger at him and don't be high-fiving other teeth. So Howie probably, if the organization felt that he had gone way overboard and it could potentially obstruct a price down the road, I never saw the pullback, which is the reason why I've said that Nick's Sirianni is stubborn. I'll give you one other incident. Shockingly, I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the show before, the fact that he never defers, always defers, never even thinks about it. Just go ahead. The analytics say that's just stubborn. You have to take into consideration each and every single game. His stubbornness there just scrapes at me. You know that. And maybe, just maybe, he loses his mind today and goes real stubborn on him and says, no, my coaching staff would. The one thing we don't know is how much the whole Matt Patricia thing came down, whether it was him and he does that. He's not stubborn. He's stupid. But we don't know how much.
Maybe he'll say he can't shovel out here in South Jersey. Can't get over.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that'll be John McMullen and Ed Kratz and all the other Eagle beat writers texting their life away to find out where Nick Sirianni is stuck and offer him a ride in their fancy four-wheel drives on their huge Eagle reporter fans salaries to get Nick over to the Wells Fargo. No, I don't think so. That's not going to be happening. I would not be surprised if Nick is already there. Just made sure, got over there.
You got to be there early. You got to pretend. That's Dick Vermeil's fault, by the way. You got to be there at 5 a.m. You got to be there, all day.
Nick probably working on his 4th cup of coffee. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We are Mac on Birds 365. One of our faves. He's got the good heavy shirt on today, like Jody Mack. He's prepared for the winter. Ed Kratz joins us next here on Birds 365.